Welcome back, baseball fans, to this Eliminating the Pittsburgh Pirates video, the happiest of these elimination videos because it's the last one that I have to do, but happy because that team has just won the World Series. That is the Pittsburgh Pirates from the 71. The first year in the timeline is the most dominant. 8 of the 20 players are from that year. Here are your stats for that World Championship team. Wasn't easy by any stretch. This team struggled. Years and years of struggling. When you have past failures, they creep into your strategy when you're trying to win games, and it makes it difficult to have confidence with a team. And it took a while for Pittsburgh to settle into a lineup and the substitution pattern for the bullpen and defense. And then they got hot in the second half. They were winning series. They weren't blowing teams out. They didn't sweep anybody by any stretch. You didn't see any 4 games to nothings. It was often 3-1 victory over the Cubs, a 4-2 victory over the Giants, a 4-2 over the Phillies, and 4-3 over the Tigers. Overall, that's 15-8, which is very good, but it's not one of the greatest performances by a World Series team I've had. The 38 wins is impressive. That's a high win total, but they have 28 losses. They scored 326 runs, gave up 277. Yeah, that's in the pocket there for the one lost. 286 batting average, led the league in hitting. 363 ERA, we'll take that as well for the Pirates. Rennie Stennett's card does the same thing. It's a 353 card. Always hits that well. Clemente, 321. His card is 341. Look, every one of these players, you'll take the numbers. It's just that sometimes the card looks like it'll produce more. But you're still happy with the overall production. Who's going to complain about a team that hits 286 and say, oh, these guys should have hit 290 or 300? Dave Parker, 317, his first year with that card. Tavares, 312. Forgot Tavares hit 312. I would not have known it. If you told me Tavares hit 212, he made such a little impact at the shortstop position, surviving his defense to win a World Series. So he's a 3E44. We made Milbourne a 3E38, though he was actually a 4 on the Strat card, but he was a 3 at second. Oliver, 309. Zisk. We gotta go skip down though. The Willie Stargell performance is so bizarre, and it's not just this year. 3 straight years this guy isn't at 250 with a 71 MVP, the 3-way tie event MVP with Aaron and Torrey that Torrey won. But Stargell's 295 hitting card hits 211. 25 homers, led all of baseball. 57 RBIs as well. 55 hits in 66 games. 27 walks, 84 strikeouts. So we're getting close to, full season. Does he strike out 200 times? I mean, that's how, yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. Won the World Series, and Pirates needed those 25 home runs. He had a big home run in Game 4 that the Pirates won 2-1. So yeah, you needed those homers and RBIs. You can't dog on this guy. It's just, it's a great story because they won the World Series. So if I'm Stargell, I'm doing cartwheels. I hit 211 and we win the World Series. Plus he's going to play this entire decade, so he can get another ring or two. He'll get that ring in '79 as the league MVP. Pitching, Steve Blass. I mentioned he's more of a World Series MVP than regular season MVP. As a matter of fact, the team MVP, I got to give it to Roberto Clemente. He's got 90 hits in 66 games. Never had a guy in triple digits in hits, and boy, he came dangerously close to that. So I would say Clemente's a team MVP. Richie Hebner, they put him in the leadoff spot, and they took off and started to win. But statistically, he actually had a below average year for his standards. He's a 300 hitter. Blast 10-9, 8 complete games, 3.16 ERA, 136 WHIP. Again, he's not up there with Seaver, Palmer, Catfish Hunter, Juan Marichal, etc. But he's good enough to anchor this staff. who they're not trying to win the games with dynamite starting pitching. They got great relief pitching. Before we get there, Bob Moose, he was having a great year. Got knocked around in one of his World Series starts. But otherwise, 372, 134. Those are your two dogs there. Then Rooker and Foster. Rooker, they got it from Kansas City. He had a nice year, 88 innings, can't pitch on 3 days rest. And Alan Foster, taken away from the Cardinal organization, Cardinals had too many righties. I think I mentioned the Cubs had too many righties, and that's how they lost Bill Hands. Cardinals lose Alan Foster because Bob Gibson is keeping on. Gibson's just rolling along, and they don't have room for the young Alan Foster in the Cardinal carryover league, and the Pirates stole him, and he did a fine job in the 4 spot. He did a better job in the playoffs than the regular season. Let's put it that way. Dave Justy and Bruce Keeson, magnificent. 9 saves, 3 wins. Ramon Hernandez, the World Series struggles were a shame for a guy who, up until that point, was doing a nice job. He had 5 saves. Him and Justy were doing a admirable job for a struggling team that got better as the season went on. And really, it was all the lefties of the Pittsburgh. Rooker, Hernandez, and Kelly got knocked around by the Detroit Tigers. That's a shame. The Tigers just crushed lefties, and Ramon Hernandez was simply in the way. He was in the way, along with Dick Kelly. But actually, this is a very good. Probably wouldn't. The last few world champions, the Cincinnati Reds a year ago, New York Mets the year before that, Baltimore Orioles the year before that. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have the Pirates quite up on that shelf as far as the performance of the stats you're looking at. But the Strat-O-Matic cards would suggest, oh yeah, they're on that top shelf with those teams. That's what the cards look like. They just didn't perform as well as you thought. And yet, with that, they win the World Series. Let's take a look at the card set of an underachieving world champion. if there is such a team, like there's an asterisk next to that World Series trophy because they were game under 500 at the All-Star break. I mean, it's kind of silly. So we're going to look at first take a quick peek at the 8 players from the 71 Pirates who got World Series rings. Now, not every single player here was a Pirate. A lot of them were. And there's some, of course, big Hall of Fame names here that may or, we'll see how their futures are. But we got to see how they defend their title by looking at the first 12 players coming back next year. And it looks like they're going to go with a 7-5 split. That's the most conventional split. 7 hitters, 5 pitchers. What that means is you don't have an enormous need in filling out your hitting or pitching. You're pretty balanced. So they have a balanced 7 hitting, 5 pitchers. We have Sanguian. We'll just do it by position. We have a catcher. We have some infielders here. We have Milburn and Tavares, kind of a shortstop platoon or second base. Hebner's at third. Okay. We're still a little bit clogged up in the outfield, but we're getting younger here. And we also have somebody coming back to join them. But you have, Parker's more of a right fielder. Actually, Parker with his rookie card doesn't have that great arm yet. He's got a 0 arm, and his range isn't good. It's very young. But you got Oliver really kind of forced to play out of position for this team, which they didn't have a better center fielder defensively than this. He's more of a first baseman or a corner outfielder. But he got the job done, and they won the World Series, like I said. So it's really hard to not knock on these guys. It really shouldn't be. And the brilliant Zisk card. So plenty of offense there. I think they need simply a first baseman. Just a first baseman. The pitching now. Well, so Blast will have to be replaced, and he might be worse. Actually, Moose becomes the ace at this point. If you're wondering where Doc Ellis is, he's in the expansion Ohio team. So that's why Doc Ellis isn't here. Or Doc Medich. Doc Medich is still with the Yankees. But anyway, Bob Moose, kind of, at the moment, would be your number 1. You kind of don't want him to be your number 1, though his stats are pretty darn good. But Blast will probably come back. We think. And Rooker can't pitch on 3 days rest, so he's your number 3 guy. Here's the Alan Foster card. I mean, he's good. He's got a 3.13 ERA. That's pretty darn good. I don't know if he's good enough to be beyond a 3. He's a 4 right now. I wouldn't want him to be a 1 or 2. He might be bumped up to a 3. And then at the back end, the good news is the two-headed monster comes back. It's really strange that so Ramon Hernandez came in when Steve Blass pitched, and Blass has the same template, the 4-4 template, and Hernandez is better than Blass. His card is. Yet Blass was the World Series most valuable player. They won all his starts, and Ramon Hernandez got lit up like a Christmas tree. So it's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, for Ramon Hernandez here. And then Justy, again, you gotta love that performance there for a righty reliever. No extra base hits, and only a homer, 1 to 3 double. So you've got. It's more important, I think, to have the great finish on a team that you're not expecting. You're just not expecting phenomenal starting pitching out of Pittsburgh. Let's face it, because you got this incredible offense, and you got a great closers. They're a little bit, it's kind of patterned out after the Cincinnati Reds, right? Sparky Anderson had his bullpen and the great offense, and Pittsburgh's sort of following suit in the same division. You could argue the good starting pitching in this division is with the Cubs and the Cardinals, with Bob Gibson and Fergie Jenkins, Bert Hooten, guys like that. So, with that, we're now going to take a look at the 8 players from the world champion 1971 Pittsburgh Pirates and see who's getting kept, waived, or retired. Okay, we begin with the 8 players from 71, and we start with Roberto Clemente. And this is it's a rather fascinating moment in the carryover league because of when a player passes away, he gets to continue on because it's 4 years. And Roberto is the greatest in this timeline, the greatest single player who met an untimely death. We had Don Wilson passed away, Lyman Bostock, Thurman Munson, Don Wilson, all in the prime of their lives here in this, and I'm sure others that you can comment upon. But so the abrupt end here in 72. So he will come back to defend the championship next year with his final year in 72. A 312 year for Clemente. And what's interesting about this is that we're getting into 75. So it's a 72-75 season next year. You know what happened in 75, folks? The Big Red Machine won the World Series. Could you imagine if Roberto Clemente prevented the Reds from winning the 75 series? So that is a talking point for next year. Not to mention that Joe Morgan will get traded to the Reds. So that'll be a real fun divisional battle. The last 2 champions in this sport, the Reds won the World Series a year ago, and now the Pirates. And now next year, Roberto Clemente's final year, he announced his retirement, we could say. His last dance next year for Roberto Clemente. So that's how you kind of make it, you put a silver lining on the tragedy there. Next player is Bill Mazeroski. Won the 60 series, and then he continues through all the way to 71. One more year. Could he get a ring in his final year, 71? The answer is yep, he did. Did he play in the 71 World Series? Yeah. Let's take a look at that. I'm going to go to the 71 series for Mazeroski here. He got one at bat against Baltimore in that World Series. They played the Giants in the NLCS, and the Pirates in my year played the Giants in the divisional round. So he was just on the bench there because they had Stennett and Dave Cash and Gene Alley. But Mazeroski stuck around, and in 71, and I think in 72, They might have made his card with Pittsburgh. Let's go check it out. So we're going to look and see if they made a 72 card as an infielder here. Gene Alley, who the Pirates waived and the Yankees picked up. Don't see Mazeroski there. Let's look at the extra guys. No. Kleins, Miller, Pagan, Luke Walker. So we have to retire Mazeroski. He actually played in 72, but Strat didn't make his card, at least in this first edition set. Now, you'll probably say, if you get the reissue, they'll probably have a Mazeroski extra player card, because you have 27 players instead of 24, if I had to guess. Next player, Bob Robertson. Oh, a great year in 71. Seemed to, you know, it was funny, but it was like, when we were building this team, it was like, do we have room for Bob Robertson? Because of Parker and Clemente and Oliver and Stargell and Zisk, it's like, maybe Bob Robertson's the odd man out. Well, folks, Bob Robertson's a 2'11" first baseman, and as a right-handed batter, although most of those guys are left-handed, he fit in really nicely on the Pirates World Series team that just won it all. And he actually had a pretty good World Series in 71. And 26 home runs is coming off of 27 in 70. So 72, you start to see they take away his playing time a little bit. Has a really bad 72. It's 193. This guy's going to be looking for a job. He can still slug. He can still probably work in the platoon. Does he need to be kept by the Pirates? He'll eventually finish with Seattle. This could be, again, where I talk about poaching. Like, teams look at the World Series teams and they look at who's the fifth guy, who's the guy they can't keep. And right now it could be Bob Robertson, and an expansion team will be like, let's just wait till the Pirates have to get down to the 4 keepers, and we're going to scoop up Bob Robertson off waivers. So his 72 card does exist with Pittsburgh with that many at-bats, but I'm going to put him on waivers. And that's simply because I'm being opportunistic that I could find 3 other guys I want more than Robertson. Beginning with this guy. Willie Stargell. So Willie, maybe this card was jinxed that I used. I mean, this is one of the exceptionally odd performances with a stunning card that I've ever had. I mean, I've had a Wade Boggs card hitting 244. I've had a Tony Gwynn card hit 240 for me. So you have cards that in a short sample will disappoint. But I have had this 71 Stargell card for 3 years. 48 home runs, 295 average, 1026, did lead the league in strikeouts, but second in MVP voting. And it produced home runs, never produced a batting average above 250. But the good news is, plenty to choose from in 72 or 73. And look at the MVP voting. Second, third, second. One of the reasons why we believe he was given the 79 MVP is because he was always the bridesmaid. And they decided to give him his MVP in 79. A lot of people thought Keith Hernandez deserved it. Isn't that strange? Keith Hernandez played for the Cardinals, as did Joe Torre, who got the MVP. So there's probably a little bit of trade-off in that, I'm guessing, with some voters. But yeah, magnificent year. His best OPS, 73. Pop Stargell. Does he play first? Would it make more sense with Pittsburgh to get him the first base as soon as possible, since Bob Robertson's leaving? That creates a spot, a full-time outfield spot that you can plug Zisk at DH with Parker in the outfield with Clemente and Oliver. So the odd man out next year is Bob Robertson going on waivers. So that kind of, now you see full-time roles. Clemente in right, you could have Oliver in center, you could put Parker in left, while Clemente's still on the team, and Ziska DH. So that's that's scary. Again, you know, it's like, oh, here we go, here come the Pirates again. They could scare you some more next year. The 5th hitter is Rennie Stennett, who has 2 barbell seasons we can't quite bridge. The 71, and the other one is 77. Yeah, can't bridge them. Boy, if you could. This is how a player can just dominate in the carryover league. if you can make your monster years of an otherwise unexceptional career 4 years apart. And so that you can go from the 71 card to the 77 card. We can't quite do that, you see. So here's the 71 card we had. And we have to consider these 4 years. And they're nice years. You got a 291 and a 286 in here. So obviously, it would seem you've come to a crossroads between Rennie Stennett and Bob Robertson, and you decide to take Rennie Stennett. Now we go to the pitching. Steve Blass, has he lost his control, which sadly shortened his career? Or does he have still one more productive year left? So this is your World Series MVP. And he pitched outstanding. Let's look at his World Series numbers. I want to skip to that, because that's a... So there it is. So there, you know, again, see? 2-0, ERA of 1, 18 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs against Baltimore. 2 complete games. Steve Blass. If you look at the other pitchers in that World Series, they went with a bunch of guys. They went with Doc Ellis. They went with Bob Johnson. They went with Luke Walker. They went with Bob Moose. Keeson was on the team, but out working out of the bullpen. By the way, in '72, he won one of his 2 LCS starts against the Reds. Also pitched well. Look at his 3 series. It's a shame he got knocked around in '71 to the Giants. That kind of made his numbers not look as great. So, 3.10 ERA in 40 innings. In a very short burst of brilliance here from Steve Blass. Well, he's coming back at 72. I just saw that he played in that LCS, and there it is. So he comes back. All-Stars, second in Cy Young voting in 72. 19-8, 2.49 ERA. Oh boy, folks, are we going to have another back-to-back? Are we going to have a dynasty? Are we going to have? Is it the Pirates? Wouldn't it be funny if it's actually the Pirates with a dynasty, shocking the Reds and the Oakland A's? And as much as I banged on the Pirates this year because of their underachievement, that they suddenly went on this late season playoff roll, and now next year they're going to blow everybody out of the water. Finally, you know, Stargell will hit 320 or something like that. Next guy, Dick Kelly. Not associated with the Pirates in this timeline. He was a Padre. Dick Kelly was with the Braves, and then the Padres. He went there for that expansion in '69, and he was over by '71. So it's easy to resolve him. He has to go in retirement. He along with Mazeroski. So, and then last but not least is Bruce Keeson, and he's going to have to crash the party here. And this is where things are going to get tricky here for the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's not going to work out. They have too many guys. Bruce Keeson. And Keeson's a longtime Pirate. He eventually ends up with the Angels. Keeson with Pittsburgh, then the Angels, and then Red Sox '85. The numbers are not spectacular. His career best season was only a 14-game winner. Yeah. And then but he's kind of under the radar a little bit. He's very consistent. He's got an ERA of 3.20, 3.49, 3.23. Doesn't pitch on 3 days rest. He's somewhere between a guy who doesn't nail down a full-time starting role. He's always in the bullpen a little bit. Never switches over to a full-time reliever. He's a starter relief. Very intriguing how to fit him into the Pirate quotient. So in this past season, relegating him to the bullpen helped out a lot, because he was the number 2 righty behind Justy with Dick Kelly and Ramon Hernandez. Very valuable, and they needed that, because otherwise Justy would have worn out. And the lefty relievers, Kelly and Hernandez, got knocked around by right-handed hitters, so he's still very valuable. 72, in the entire timeline, 73, he's probably got hurt his arm or something. So that card's not going to exist. The other 3 cards are going to exist. He's a Pirate. He's a keeper. I mean, it's just that this could be that 5th wheel I talk about. It's like, this is where the expansion teams are licking their chops going, we could get Bruce Kieson out of this. You know, like the fictional teams, Las Vegas, Portland, of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks, Colorado Rockies, Florida Marlins, Seattle and Toronto don't exist in this timeline yet. Boy, those teams would love to have Bruce Kieson. So, Clemente, Stargell, Stennett, Blass, Kieson. One outlier idea I'm not a particularly fan of, because you know Clemente's only got 1 more year. You could retire him. You could retire Clemente and have him not come back, since you've got so many outfielders. Keep the 4. To me, I want to see the Hall of Famer play, and I can't justify the Hall of Famer playing in another uniform. I think the Pirates are probably just going to lose Kieson. I hate to say it, and maybe they can get him back in a future year. But I got to go with Blass as an All-Star, World Series MVP. I got to go with Rennie Stennett. You know, and eventually get him into a 77 card in a few years. Of course, Stargell, Clemente. So yeah, I think Kieson's a trade. And this is another one where if there's too many keepers in the league, and we can check that right now, and we do have a ton of keepers. So now we've done all 32 teams, and here is the final tally of how many keeps, waves, and retires we have before the postseason begins. We're supposed to have 128, 64, and 64. We have 138, so we're plus 10 keepers, 68 waves, and we're plus 4 there. And retirements, we only have 50, so we're minus 14 there. So there is, you see, this is supposed to add up to 0 here. And so it means that in our league, a lot of teams want to keep players. They're not going to be able to keep them. And it means that we have to move 14 players into the retirement pool. There's some pretty weak players we gave waivers to. Like Buford hits like 200. That will move into retirement. You can come out of retirement. You just have to classify, is he on waivers or in retirement. So we're going to have a pretty good waiver pool. And this is pretty good news, I believe, for your expansion teams, that there's going to be some really talented players that can't be kept. And I expect next year to be closer to more games are going to be played because it's going to be more competitive. And also, you're going to see less dynasty teams next year because they're going to just be beating each other up again. Like the Pirates and the Reds are going to beat each other up. And I don't see anybody kind of running away with things next year. It'll get closer to the middle, with the bottom teams getting better and the best teams losing talent. Baltimore's going to lose a talented player. They got 5. Let's just go to the big American League teams for a moment here. The Tigers have 5. They're going to lose a guy. We just did analysis on them. Of course, the Twins are 5. The White Sox are going to have to lose a guy. They got 5. Let's see here. Oakland has 5. They're going to lose a guy. Dynasty A's are going to lose a guy. Atlanta, it will be okay. They need to actually acquire guys. Mets have this insane. Here's your problem right here. New York Mets are going to have kind of a Trader Vic. They have all 8 of their guys they want to keep. They want to keep everybody. And the rude awakening is you're only going to keep 4. So half of the transaction, or 4 of the 10 transactions in the National League, are probably going to come right through the Mets to get them down to 4. My goodness. The Reds have 5. The Pirates have 5. And then out west, Dodgers need help. They only have 3. Giants have 5. So that's what this is going to be a fun off season. There's going to be a lot of transactions, a lot of player movement in this off season. Thanks for checking out this Eliminating the Pittsburgh Pirates video, and we'll see you next time.